I had one of those Pepsi zero sugar cream soda things. 0 calories, really tasty. Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs Media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. We have got very little Cavs since we last podcasted because it was the All-Star weekend. It was fun seeing Jalen Tyson in the Rising Stars game. Donovan Mitchell wasn't able to advance in the three-point shootout. And, you know, the final game, a lot of fun. Didn't always follow the format, but you know what? We at least got to see Donovan Mitchell out there. He was stuck with the olds. That's going to be my excuse for why he didn't win. Joining me today is a fellow old, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, fellow old. I gotta say, first takeaway, free Donnie. Why are we going like 9 straight minutes without him on the floor, as you can literally hear the bones creaking of his team as the game gets away?
Like, of all the people that probably on that team wanted to actually be out there and playing a substantial amount, I needed more Donnie. And
Come on, man.
Especially at a time where the Cavs were so much fun heading into the All-Star break, and I just want to see more Cleveland Cavaliers on my screen. And we have a couple of them competing, and I don't get enough over this weekend. Now I have to wait all the way until Wednesday. It's exhausting. I thought All-Star weekend was pretty fun, though.
I always think it's pretty fun, Justin. It's fine.
It is fine. My biggest gripe is that they keep making too many changes to the format. I think the mini tournament thing is great, but I think the NBA sometimes is just a little too receptive to feedback, and they're willing to change everything. And when you're willing to change everything because of discourse, it just invites more discourse. It's like letting your
It's the discourse league.
It's like letting your kids pick what they want for dinner every single night. Like, you think that's cool. You think it's going to get people to like you more. But sometimes you just have to say, here's the product. This is what it is. Stop giving us your hoop ideas.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I couldn't agree more. So many ideas running around the internet these days. You know what's interesting is, and I promise, guys, we'll actually talk about the Cavs soon, but we have to get some gripes off our chest. No one does this with the NFL anymore. You know, there was a stretch of time where the NFL was getting hoop idea'd to hell. And I would argue it's harder to watch the NFL than it's ever been. Like, there's less good quarterbacks than there's ever been, at least in the last like 10, 15 years. And you know, there's all these Thursday games that are hard to watch. There's an extra game in the calendar, so the last week of the season is decided. No one's trying to solve football anymore.
No,
I'm just, man.
I like the product, man, and
I just want to quietly sit and enjoy watching a sport.
I agree. And I think the mini tournament idea, I remember when we first saw that with the Rising Stars, we thought that was like the best idea ever. I thought it does add another level of competitiveness. The players that don't want to compete don't advance, right? So you kind of have that built in where every single game is a fourth quarter. You know, kind of ironic. I'm self-aware to recognize that I'm doing this right after I'm saying stop hoop idea. But what I would like to see is East versus West, expand it to 14 players because that is long overdue, especially if expansion is around the corner with the NBA. Have the two top vote getters from each conference pick who their team is going to be. And then the two East teams play each other, the two West teams play each other, and then we have a little final. Like, to me, that's so simple. It keeps it to basketball. I think it combines all the elements that we like. And right now, because the league is changing up things based on what podcasters are saying, I feel like I should say this idea because there's a chance it lands. No, there isn't.
Unlike one of us, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and decline to weigh in to the discourse further.
Okay, very fair, very fair. So let's start with the mailbag. Let's just get right into it. And because I'm self-absorbed, I put a question that I have for you at the top of the list, Carter. How high is the ceiling for Jalen Tyson, our rising star from the weekend? I wanted to have this discussion. Nobody asked Jalen Tyson questions, surprisingly. So I'm going to ask you, how high is the ceiling for Jalen Tyson?
You know, I gotta say it was encouraging because the NBA posted like a video clip from the locker room being like, "Hey, who are you looking forward to playing with, playing against in the Rising Stars event?" Like 4 or 5 guys said Jalen Tyson. You know, Concanibal talked about how he guarded him really well. You know, just a lot of nice positive vibes for among the sophomore and freshman class of the league for a guy like Jalen. You know, he's averaging 14, 5, and 2 right now on pretty solid minute chunk. He's playing 28 minutes a game, which is crazy, by the way. It's crazy. I never would have thought that he would have played 28 minutes a game. Like, you look at Ty Jerome played 20 minutes a game for us last year and was third in 6th man of the year voting. So, you know, I think the volume is great. The efficiency is great. It's kind of hard to imagine it going up a ton more within the context of this Cavs team. I don't, you know, he says he wants to be an all-star. I would say if I really was being a reserved, like, try to like take my heart and my spirit out of it and just analyze, I think he probably caps out as one of those guys who is just right underneath the all-star bubble. You know, a very, very good player who's very, very helpful that, you know, doesn't quite get to that level. And by the way, that's no insult. We just saw Jamal Murray make his first all-star team. Aaron Gordon has never made an all-star team. You know, I'm listing off Denver Nuggets right now, but I think that's reflective of how highly I think of Jalen Tyson that I'm throwing his name out with guys like that who have swung playoff series, swung playoff games. So that's my gut feeling, just because I think if he gets a chance to have the usage go way up in a different context, you know, I just don't. I mean, he's not shooting on these ridiculous 51-47 splits. But what do you think?
Well, I think your answer is the right one if you're talking about the most probable outcome. But because the question is ceiling, I will say that I do think that he is.
You think
capable.
That's the most probable outcome is an Aaron Gordon or Jamal Murray type of career?
Like short, fair pushback.
Because I thought I was being pretty nice.
I took a little swipe at you. I do think that the ceiling is that he could make an all-star team. And I scoffed at the notion earlier, earlier this season when we had these discussions in our Discord, and our buddy Joe asked me that and said it, and I pushed back at him. But I do legitimately think that he could potentially make an all-star team. Like, I don't think he's going to be a perennial type all-star, but I do think that he's capable of making one. And some of that is, he's 23 years old, right? Like, I think this current window with James Harden and Donovan Mitchell, we probably expected for what, 2 more years? And if he's on a team where he continues to get better and continues to step up into a higher usage role alongside Evan Mobley, we know that Evan Mobley alone gives you a pretty high floor. I think Jalen Tyson is the type of guy that alongside him on a team that gets good team success, you can get into an all-star game and an all-star situation. And I think that success component is a big part of it too, right? Because guys are going to miss time. You're going to have those all-star replacements. De'Aaron Fox, based on the Spurs team success, got in. When you look at his numbers, he basically was having the same season as turf toe Darius Garland, right? Like in terms of production and efficiency, like the numbers are basically identical. So I think I can see it from Jalen. Our buddy Ziggy
I have a
came
follow
up
up on this.
I just want to give Ziggy a shout out because he came up with the Caron Butler comp for Jalen Tyson, and I just absolutely love that. Like,
It's a great comp.
A modern day, higher volume from three, more consistent 3-point shooting, Caron Butler archetype. I really like that.
Both limited athletes, both nasty, both that have a little bit of playmaking to their game, but you never want to build the whole engine around them. It's a great comp. If Jalen Tyson is to make an all-star team, do you think it is more likely that he does so before he turns 29 or after he turns I think like 29?
That 27, 28 would be kind of my guess.
He's 23 right now, so we'd be looking 5 years down the road to be hitting that target. And I do think I actually would lean towards a late career all-star berth on a really good team, just because I don't see any context in which he's going to get that volume on these Cavs teams in the next 2-3 years. And now all of a sudden your window's pretty tight.
In the next 2-3 years, I do not see it at all. But I thought it was an interesting thing to get the juices flowing. I'm so enamored with him. And obviously Donovan Mitchell was as well, wearing his jersey during the 3-point contest. Damian Lillard winning that was kind of cool to see. What were your What was you liked it as well, right?
I like basketball. I like All-Star Weekend. I'm not Dame's biggest fan, but like, what a low stakes environment to do a nice thing and a fun thing.
Yeah.
In one of these tournaments. I did have a thought though. Wouldn't it be fun if I am going to hoop idea, but in a way that is not implying that I'm trying to fix the NBA?
Okay.
So I think I'm allowed. I don't think this makes me a hypocrite. It might, but whatever. Wouldn't it be fun if every 3-point contest we had a legend join the contest?
Like that would be pretty fun.
We had, Reggie, or when Steph retires, have him come back. Because I think that would be really, really fun. I remember we asked Channing Frye when we talked. We did like a private podcast with him at like a Cavs event for All Star. We asked him how he would do, and he's like, "It would take me a minute, and I'd be pretty gassed, but I think I could give me a couple weekends of prep, and I could get out there." And I think it would be super fun, even if they did a bad job. Who cares? It'd be fun to watch Reggie Miller shoot threes again.
Yeah, that's a fun idea. I like it, and once again, I like basketball, so I like it. We took enough time with ourselves and our own, questions and whatnot. We got a lot of listeners' questions, and a big thanks to everyone that, sent in the questions. You guys came in clutch. These are absolutely essential when we have these little windows where there just isn't basketball to talk about. So we will start off first with a Twitter question from Taylor. What would the best rotation for this team once everyone what would be the best rotation for this team once everybody is healthy again? Who gets the last starting spot between Strus, Tyson, Merrill, and Wade?
You want to go first?
Yeah, so when it comes to the starting spot, I do think this needs to be merit-based, and for that reason, I'm going to say Jalen Tyson. I think he has played well enough to deserve it. And, Sam has been terrific as well, but I do think he's giving up, meaningful size there. I think you need what Jalen Tyson brings on the defensive end of the court as well at the small forward position, importantly, right? Like Sam does a good job on guards, but I think you're asking quite a bit if he's out there at small forward permanently. Dean Wade, obviously, the lineup data over the last few years is that Wade is better at power forward, but the record is fantastic when he starts at small forward. However, with this current construction of this team, Dean Wade as the third big is one of the hardest things to, there is no backup plan. There is no replacement for it. I love Naquan Tomlin, but if you're talking about a playoff series, I don't trust him to that extent. Dean Wade needs to be that third big. Therefore, I want to keep him at power forward, basically exclusively. And Max, I think, is going to, when he does come back, I think it's going to take him some time. So I'm going with Jalen Tyson.
Yeah, I'm with you. The other reason I talked with Danny Cunningham on Locked On Caps. I believe that podcast comes out tonight in like 45 minutes. But we had this discussion there, and because he's Team Dean for the starting three. I know.
Interesting. Okay.
My big problem with it is it really boxes you in rotationally, because I think Dean is at his best with this team as a 17 to like 22 minute player. And if you start him and you stick with the same starting lineup in the first and second halves, all of a sudden you are locked into 10 minutes right there. 5 to start the first half, 5 to start the second half, generally. And then now you're in a spot where, in order to, stagger Mobley and Allen, now you got to give him all the backup 4 minutes, and now you're pushing Dean into the required 25 30-minute category, and I think that's asking a little bit too much of him and makes it too hard.
There's diminishing returns.
I think it makes it too hard to balance the rotation. I think there are games where Dean can be asked to go up to 25 30 32 minutes, and that's fine, but that's typically when the jumper's on, and you want his minute bursts to increase because of merit, not because you boxed yourself in. And then conversely, because he's your third big, you also can't let him be your Keith Bogans memorial fake starter, where he does, he starts the first half and second half and doesn't play any other minutes. Like, you don't really want that either, because he's too important for this team. So I don't love Dean there as a starter. And then also, like, while, yes, he can space, and yes, the jumper's been a little better, one, I just trust Jalen's three-pointer more. I trust Max Strus's three-pointer more. I also really trust something I thought about when I was doing last night's pod with Danny is, no matter what, no matter who we have in this lineup, short of finding a small forward better than James Harden or Donovan Mitchell are, in the aggregate, the small forward spot is going to be the hiding spot, and it always is. And I won't lie and say that it doesn't appeal to me how good of a screener Jalen Tyson has become. If he's going to be guarded by the high defender, the Knicks are going to start Jalen Brunson on him. Someone who can set screens really well, slip into space and make a play over and over and over again, feels like a great perpetual scab to pick at on any team that has a weak defender guarding him.
Especially if Cat is on Mobley and, Brunson's hiding on Tyson. Those are two of the guys that you want setting screens for Harden and getting them into action right away. I get your point there.
So to that end, I think it's Tyson. I think, one, he's earned it. Two, he's the most important player, young player on the roster after Evan Mobley at this point. And you gotta, I want to see him now. I want to see him in a high leverage situation. I need to know because the very best version of this team, I think, involves Jalen Tyson fitting very well with that starting lineup. So I'd like to find out. And plus, like, reality is, when you're the fifth starter on a team, you are always up to be replaced in a postseason series if you need to be. So if it's not going well and Kenny says, "Oh man, we need Max's movement," or we need Dean's size because we're going up against a big wing and we really want to throw Dean at them and just play ultra big, like, I think you can absolutely reserve that right. But I think Jalen just deserves the spot. And like with Max, I just am too worried about him. Plus, I said it on one of our last podcasts. I think it's really important that when James and Donovan are on the floor together, you should be able to get defenses in rotation without doing a lot. and
Mm.
I want my panic inducers with off ball movement to be coming on the floor with when one of those guys is sitting. So
Right.
bringing in Sam and Max off the bench to kind of create that chaos against second units sounds really, really good to me.
Yeah. And, to Danny's point, both of these options are very good, right? Like if I look at
It's a good roster.
if I look at 4-man lineup combinations, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and Jalen Tyson, you got a 123 offensive rating and a 104 defensive rating, right? It's plus 19 in 182 minutes. That's meaningful. If I look at the Dean Wade version of that, it is also a plus 19 net rating, right? 120 over 101. Like this is two very, very good options, and there is some overlap with that, of course. I'm sure
Do
a
you say
lot of those.
120 over 101 like it's like a blood pressure reading?
Yeah, basically.
I
Yeah.
like that. That's
Yeah.
the way we should say this. That's a very clean framing. I like this, Justin.
It's a little more concise.
Now,
But
this is
of
why you're a
course,
good podcaster. Let me tell you
thank
what,
you.
brother.
Thank you. But obviously, Dean Wade and Jalen Tyson probably shared some of those minutes because I'm just quickly looking at 4-man lineup combinations. But I agree with you. I think Tyson deserves to be in that spot. The other half of Taylor's question was about the rotation, but I'm just going to merge that into our buddy Soul's question here from the Discord, who also asked how we see the rotation shaking out once everyone is healthy. And he adds, I want Keon Ellis to be a fixture in the rotation, but it feels like his minutes will fluctuate. What are your thoughts on this? I agree with you. I want to start here. So I think if we're assuming Jalen Tyson is starting, my assumption would be Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jalen Tyson are kind of that first sub out. I just think that you want to keep those guys together for the staggered minutes. Bringing in Dean Wade, Max Strus, and Sam Merrill would probably be the way that I would go with
there's
that.
your 6, 7, 8, and not in terms of minutes, but just in terms of guys we've seen on the floor.
Right. So I think at that point, you have a lot of spacing around James Harden running the pick and roll with Jared Allen. I think that's exciting. That's a lot of fun. I think at that point, you probably take Harden and Allen out along with one of Max or Sam. Probably whoever has it going, you keep them out there and you bring in what I would assume to be one of Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis, depending on the matchup. You're probably bringing in Mobley and Donovan at that point, and bringing Tyson in a little bit later would be my guess. And then, from there, you probably kind of blend based on matchups and things like that. My gut feeling is that it's going to be Dennis Schroeder more than Keon Ellis. I think Kenny Atkinson really values having connectors out there when it comes to the offense.
I think he values the rim pressure after not having it all year.
Right, right. And we certainly get that. The tricky thing, and I think the big question with Keon Ellis is how they go about getting him onto the court. I think that's one of the things I want to see Kenny figure out over the rest of the season, because there's going to be at times where Jalen Brunson is cooking and you want to turn his water off. And the question is going to be, who are you taking off the court to bring Keon Ellis in? Because you're probably going to want James Harden and Donovan Mitchell out there. Playing Keon at the 3 is something you can do, but you're making some lineup compromises.
Yeah, you don't want to build the whole boat out of that.
Right. So, maybe you go small and it's Keon Ellis and Jalen Tyson out there as the 3 and the 4 in some of these configurations. But, how do you get a stopper out there without taking away from kind of the guard production, right? I think that is going to be the hard thing for Kenny to figure out. But my guess is that in terms of minutes per game, Keon's probably going to be that 10th guy. I kind of anticipate Dennis playing more minutes than him.
Well, yeah. I mean, it just gets tough really fast on a team this deep when healthy, I think Sam's rotation spot is currently unassailable. I will say, in a playoff series, it's not that crazy to imagine Sam or Max having a bad series. And so even if Keon maybe doesn't start the playoffs in the rotation, or maybe Dennis doesn't start the playoffs in the rotation, those are kind of breaking glass in case of emergency guys for you that might just usurp minutes, in the context of a series, because those a playoff series is just so specific. And
Right.
my go-to example always is, a guy like Channing Frye, who changed the fortunes of our team. Big reason they won a title. We got to Golden State, and Ty Lue had to be like, nope, no more. Like,
Yep.
you're just not allowed to play on this in this series. So you just never know when that's going to happen to a role player. And at the end of the day, that's why the Cavs want that level of depth. I do think if Max doesn't come back at full maximusness, I think he and Keon are going to be fighting for minutes a little bit. I feel like
especially because Keon is a very willing shooter, right? Like that's the big difference between he and Okoro beyond the kind of the event stats defensively.
Yeah, there's kind of two battles as far as I can tell for Keon. It's Keon and Dennis, and I think that actually has that's a really tough one, because I don't actually think it has that much to do with Keon or Dennis. I think it has to do with how Donovan Mitchell at the point guard lineups look.
Yeah.
Like if they can find a way to juice those lineups offensively again and get them going, I think Keon's more likely to get those minutes. But if those lineups are happening and you start seeing those 111, 108 offensive rating kind of minutes, it's like, well, we need another guard out there to just get downhill and get in the paint. So I think that's battle one, and then I think it's Keon and Max, which is battle two. And I just tend to think the team needs what Dennis does a little bit more than it needs what Keon does at first blush.
That's going to be situational.
But I think Keon is clearly the better valued asset. So it'll also be an interesting thing to figure out, whether they say, hey, we might really need what Dennis does, but we just like Keon better. We don't know. This staff has got to learn these guys. But it's been interesting with Dennis, because I don't actually think he's played that well. Like his efficiency isn't that good. But nevertheless, like, I think he's added a lot when he's been on the floor, even not playing that well, just because of how sorely his skill set has been missed. Now, a lot of that change, the addition of James really changes that math. I think prior to James coming back, when I was still worried about Darius, I thought Dennis was for sure going to get it, a ton of minutes. James kind of, I think, them trading for Harden really helps Keon Ellis find minutes on this team, I suspect, because that is a really nice pairing. I've spent a lot of time thinking about Harden Merrill pairing, but like a Keon Ellis James Harden pairing is really, really great, because Keon's going to do all the crazy high effort stuff that James, historically doesn't go crazy doing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And in a lot of ways, we've kind of replaced who we had in last year's rotation, right? Like Jalen's basically going to be taking the Hunter minutes and all that. And, Isaac Okoro did find ways to average 17 minutes per game in that Pacers series, right? Like there is going to be opportunities. Obviously, some of that came with the injuries, but I think there are going to be opportunities for Keon to earn spots within the playoffs, regardless of how the regular season goes.
Yeah, and to that point, and I don't want to say it, like, I think it's more likely, we have, like, on this team right now, we have, 2 point guards that we kind of expect to be in the rotation, in James and Dennis, 3 shooting guards in Donovan, Sam, and Keon, 2 small forwards in Jalen and Max, 2 power forwards in Evan and Dean, and 1 center in Jarrett. That's kind of who we expect to be in the playoff rotation.
Yeah.
I think I will be stunned if every single one of those players is playing in a playoff series. It just hasn't been that kind of year, Justin.
That's just
what it is. Almost no one gets to have every player available. So I think a lot of these, like, I feel like it's normally you that is talking me down when I'm like, how are we going to find minutes for this guy and this guy? And you're like, yeah, they're all going to, someone's going to be hurt. So it's fine.
Yeah.
And like, that's probably the case, and that's not even being like gloom and doom about the roster as much as like, look at last year's playoffs. Almost every team's missing at least one rotation guy.
it just happens, right? And or guys are off for whatever reason, so someone else gets the opportunity to step up. There's just not a lot of certainties, right? Like it's impossible to talk with 100% confidence here. The only certainties are death, taxes, and the knowledge that teams move fastest when everyone's in sync. Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, documents, and more together, so your workflow is like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace. Our buddy Michael Keefe from the fantastic Garage Beers podcast
That's
asks,
Michael.
shout out Michael, we've seen the Harden impact on Jared Allen immediately. How do you envision them handling the return of Mobley to benefit him and keep Jared both hot?
I think this is a really tricky thing, Justin, and I'm really fascinated to see how it plays out because, I think I knew right away. Maybe I needed to see it in real time to like feel it, but I knew intellectually that the James Harden Jared Allen pairing would be a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Evan one is a little bit more mysterious to me, because Harden has made a career of just making spoon feeding guys who screen and rumble down towards the hoop and don't do a lot of dancing. They don't do a lot of thinking. They just finish. That's Dwight Howard. That's Clint Capella. That's Zubac.
Zubac a little less so.
Little less so. Less so.
Getting him, deep post position and those sorts of things.
But I'm interested to see how the pairing with Evan feels. Because Evan just like isn't a traditional downhill pick and roll player. He can do it and he's good at it, but it's not like his bread and butter. Like Evan's value on offense, I think, more than anything, is like being a lurker, in the dunker spot, reacting to action, which I think James will definitely pair very well. But he also is like doing all the soft stuff, the high post playmaking, the handle, attacking slower bigs, pushing in transition, being a playmaker. Like those aren't typically things that's not really an archetype James has played a ton around. I mean, Embiid is probably the best example, but like that's like such a different kind of like that you're comparing apples and oranges there. But then the other thing that really is scratching my brain, Justin, when's the last time James Harden played with two bigs consistently?
That's a good question.
Because he has built a whole career out of the spread pick and roll.
Yeah.
And I have no sense of what that's gonna feel like.
I think it's going to be fine. Like I think if Darius Garland navigated, the spacing of the two big lineups and was able to create advantages for them, James Harden's going to be able to do the same. I think you're going to see a lot of kind of 3-man actions at the top of the key. They're going to be basically above the 3-point arc, setting those screens. Maybe both bigs are there. I think it's going to open up some of that big to big passing. And
I think it'll be good. I'm interested to see him kind of adjust. He can be kind of a high turnover player at times. Like, if the window's a little tighter, what's that going to look like? How's that going to change his drive game? Like, he just hasn't had to do it in a while, so I'm interested to see him figure it out.
Yeah, I'm fascinated too, right? Like, I think the really interesting thing is like James Harden's an advantage creator, right? Like, I think that is where you're going to see it work with Evan Mobley. I don't think it's going to be the traditional, hey, that's a fantastic screen. Like the defender couldn't get around him. Now Mobley's rolling to the basket and he's dunking it. Like, I think you've already seen the chemistry with Jalen Tyson, whose preference is to slip the screen, right? Like he's not making tons of contact every single time. He's going to slip in those situations, and Harden just creates such an advantage, and the pass is so on the money that Tyson's able to go up and finish. I think you're going to see Harden get the defense into rotation, hit a cutting Mobley, whether that's him being involved in the primary action as a screen setter, or just him cutting into space and finding that passing lane. And because he's generating the advantage, Mobley's going to Euro step around defenders and dunk with his left hand, and he's going to do all the awesome Evan Mobley finishing stuff that we've seen in the past. I think it's going to work. I think the chemistry is a little bit more natural with Jared Allen. But what I am fascinated about is kind of the chicken or egg thing, right? Like the big question we have, right, is the health of Donovan Mitchell and keeping the bigs involved in late game situations, right? Like that is the remaining kind of big questions that we've seen with this core. If Harden is consistently available, which he's done for basically his entire career, is absorbing all of this usage, does that help prevent Mitchell from wearing down early in a series or early in a playoff run, right? Like, I think that's a big question. And the other thing is, we know he's going to try to feed the bigs consistently. If he's feeding them consistently, do you see a more consistent playoff performance out of Jared Allen? Do you see Evan Mobley consistently remain aggressive if he's getting those touches? I think we are going to find out. And in that sense, Harden's almost the perfect guy to try to get these guys going for a playoff run. I'm very, very fascinated to see how this works out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Evan is, he was second team All NBA last year, shot 55.7% from the field, 37% from three. He's down to 51% from the field this season. And the idea of just even in the, I think we're pretty much everyone in the Cavs commentary has agreed that it will be James and Jarrett and Donovan and Evan. Those will be the pairings. Yeah. But you're still going to play together. Like, James is still going to play with Evan like 16, 17 minutes a game. And I think if Evan gets back up to that 55, 56, but shows some of the skill stuff he has flashed this year, like, talk about a pretty premium outcome for this team.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting to see. And I hope that Evan is back on Wednesday right after the break. Our buddy Waji asks, looking up this upcoming tough stretch of games, what would you consider a successful stretch coming out of it? So looking at the next 11 games, because I think this is what he's talking about, you have the Nets, Hornets, Thunder, Knicks, Bucks, Pistons, Nets again, Pistons, Celtics, Sixers, and Magic. There's 3 losing teams in there, including Charlotte, who has been playing really well as of late.
And 2 of the 3 are the next 2 games. So really, it's then right. It's like what, 9 or 8 out of 9 against winning teams.
I would say a successful stretch of this, considering that there is going to be learning pains and all that, is probably 8-3. I think if they go 8-3, I would be very, very happy about that. I'd be thrilled with 9-2, like if they really took care of business, because let's say they win the 3 games against the losing teams, you're really asking them to go 5-2 or 5-3 or 6-2 over that stretch. I think that is doable with the talent on this roster, but I kind of expect there to be a letdown at some point here.
Yeah, I mean, I think 8-3 would be amazing.
I'm thrilled with 8-3.
If they go 8-3, they're going to have the 2 seed, because you look at the end of the year, and it's just. I mean, they should be ending the year on a 5-game winning streak, unless they really make a pretty big mistake. They'll be going versus Indy at Memphis, versus Atlanta at Atlanta, versus Washington. All 5 of those games, the other team's gonna not be crazy incentivized to be competitive. So like, if you come out of that stretch going 8-3, taking advantage of an OKC team that might not have Shea or Jalen Williams, I think you got to be feeling really, really great. And it's kind of funny, Justin, if they do go 8-3 or 9-2, they might be dancing against that over/under number at the beginning of the year that we thought was long dead.
It's a good point. That's a very, very good point. And my hope, the 2 games of that I really want to win are the 2 Pistons games. I don't think we can catch Detroit, but I do think there's a value in putting pressure on them, forcing them to play later into the season and all that. I just want to apply as much pressure as possible. I think that the ceiling for this team in terms of regular season seeding is the 2 seed, but I want to win those games. I want to, reestablish dominance there, because if you win both, you do have the tiebreaker again, right? You would have won 3 out of the 4 matchups this year, and probably, 13-1 going back the last few years, right? Like, keep it in their heads. Keep it in their heads the way that the Knicks were able to do the same for the Cavs when they were less experienced. Kind of tying into the schedule question, our buddy Alex asks, which of the remaining matchups in the regular season are you most interested in as we approach the playoffs? Do you think we can learn more about the team and project their success in the postseason based on these upcoming games? Carter, which one are you looking at? He identified obviously this stretch basically of Detroit, OKC, the Knicks, and Boston, possibly with Jason Tatum back.
I mean, this is a no-brainer. It's those three teams. It's the ones that matter the most, especially
Yeah,
since.
but which one do you care about the most? Pick one.
I pick Boston. They're the team I'm Boston or New York. I think I'm between those two. They're the two team. The Celtics are the team I'm most angsty about in a playoff series. Danny and I also talked about that on Locked On. I just think they kind of can Jedi mind trick this Cavs team in ways that few others can. Yeah, I just don't like that matchup. But I'm also just really excited to see what the James Harden effect looks like in those matchups. If gun to my head, I picked the Celtics, especially since I think Tatum is probably going to be playing, which is crazy.
That is crazy. I'm a little skeptical of that. I do think Tatum can come back. I think of stars to reintegrate for the last third of the season, Tatum probably is among the least disruptive. Like, I think he can go out there and play as
Celtics
a really high
ball,
level,
baby.
I think he can play as a high level role player, and that's all you can really realistically ask of him coming off of that injury. I gotta be honest, man. Adding Vucevic to that team, I just respect them less. Like, I think that is just too easy of a matchup to hunt, and that
Can
is
I
someone
say
that.
I would agree with you if Luke Cornett didn't haunt my dreams the last couple years.
But he's long. He blocks shots at least. Like, there's at least a logic to it. I have seen what Evan Mobley and Jared Allen do to Vucevic. Like, I feel pretty good about that matchup. And again, now we have James Harden running that pick and roll and targeting him on every single possession. Like, that is honestly one of the biggest differences. And it's why the Knicks are my answer, because I think that this is the most extreme example. But the Cavs, when they play really, really good teams, but a couple guys on the roster, maybe you can attack like a Karl Anthony Towns or a Jalen Brunson. In the past, the Cavs have ran their offense, and they usually have success. They're usually close. They're good games. They win a good clip of them. James Harden is a liability hunter in a way that nobody on this roster is. And
Certainly was not Darius Garland, who, again, we both adore. Darius was not famously someone who would rip your heart out over and over and over again in that way.
Harden will abandon the playbook to attack what he thinks is an advantage, right? And sometimes, like, we've already seen it in his first 3 games with the Cavs. Sometimes that means he's scoring. Sometimes that means I'm going to find someone that I think has an advantage here. I'm really, really curious to see what he does in that matchup against the Knicks. But I think that is a dynamic that changes how we match up against these teams, particularly with ones that have that type of liability, whether it's at the guard position in Brunson or whether it's a big like Cat or Vucevic. Guards Ball Knower asks, in honor of the Winter Olympics, who would you award the gold, silver, and bronze medals to on this team relative to their expectations coming into the season? Carter, your answers?
I mean, your gold medalist, Jalen Tyson. I mean, went from a guy I thought might play to, a guy I just said is the second most important young guy on this roster. So I think he's definitely my gold. Donovan's my silver, just because I think he's gone up a level as a scorer. Has really helped carry this team through some pretty ugly stretches. Without him, I think we'd be thinking a lot differently about this team, or even if he was just playing a more low-key style of basketball to start the year offensively, I think we'd probably be like, okay, maybe we can get up to the 4 seed, but now we're like, yeah, let's go, screw it, let's try to chase the Pistons if we can. Maybe they'll lose 3 in a row and we can catch up. So I would say he's my silver, and then who's my bronze? Naquan.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to steal my answer entirely. I agree. Jalen Tyson is the gold medalist. Don is a silver. I think the way that he has shouldered this load, shown the durability, it just goes to show, once again, he put in all the work in the offseason. He talked about at Media Day how he's coming in basically already in February shape. And I think that he has been, just the load bearing like pull for this entire thing this season. I think he's been fantastic. The defensive numbers are better than I would have expected with that. So I think Don is the silver. Sam is my bronze. I think Sam has been
Oh, I
fantastic.
forgot Sam.
I
Sam might be my gold. Sorry, I was thinking about Sam. If he had played every game this season, Sam would be gold because
Wow,
this guy has been
it went to
ballistic.
instant replay, and Carter just gave Sam Merrill the silver and bumped Don down. That's a tough one.
That guy has been so much better than I thought he was going to be this year.
Steph Heineman asks from Twitter, with whom in the backcourt will Dennis Schroeder be the best fit? I'm most fascinated by Dennis and Sam or Dennis and Don as the combinations. I think it's going to be Donovan Mitchell. I think having him out there is basically the reason to bring him in is to help make Don's life easier when James Harden is on the bench, right? Or Darius Garland before the trade. It was to give a guard option for him to play off of, similar to what he had in Ty Jerome last year. So for that reason, I think it's Don.
I agree. And I agree with your framing as well, which is that I would argue if it's not Don, I don't think Dennis is going to be in the rotation in games that matter. Because that's kind of the thesis statement at the end of the day is like be point guard for Don when James is not out there. I am a little to add something to the discourse since you already nailed the question, in my opinion. I do wonder if there's ever going to be a time where we see Don, James, and Dennis out at the same time.
Yes.
If they're getting ball pressured really hard.
This is a Kenny Atkinson team. I think we are going to see a 3-guard lineup with that at some point.
And I think those are probably the 3 guards. Like if you're going to go with the 3-guard lineup, I guess like Keon at the 3 he's just kind of more of a wing to me.
Cheating. I don't count that.
He's more of a wing to me. But yeah, I think there's a real chance where Kenny, like in a tight spot, is like, hey, I just need everyone on the floor to be able to initiate offense. So I could see that happening.
This next question is probably the most difficult for me to answer. Baldman Gets Paid asks, complete the following sentence and please assume good health. If the Cavs win the East, it will be because blank and blank. If the Cavs... go for it. Yeah. Go. Let's answer the first one first.
Yeah, we'll do it in pieces. If the Cavs win the East, it will be because James Harden consistently abused mismatches. And because the bigs stayed involved no matter who they played against.
Yeah. I will say if the Cavs win the East, it will be because Donovan Mitchell got enough support from everybody else that he was able to go out there and close series where he didn't. I thought your point was brilliant when we talked about this before, where he's had to have these superhuman performances, but they've come early in a series, right? Like it's, oh man, we're down 2-1. We need to get this series tied, so I'm going to go out there and do it. I think Donovan will need to be put in positions where that kind of superhuman game comes later in a series to close out a series. And the other thing I will say is James Harden found a way to make it work with both bigs. I think the only way that Donovan gets enough support is if Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are consistently involved in the offense and are productive. I think he's going to need to have chemistry with both of those bigs, and I think they're going to need to remain productive in order for the offensive floor of this team to be consistent enough for them to actually win 3 rounds of the playoffs. I don't think Donovan Mitchell and Harden and everyone else's kind of window dressing is going to be enough offensively, consistently enough to win 3 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, if I may devil's advocate, I think it probably would have been enough last year if they were healthy. But
maybe
we'll never know.
It's true.
The second half of the question: if the Cavs lose in the second round again, it will because blank, and reminder to the audience that this is assuming good health. Would you like to go first, Justin, or would you like me to take it?
You go first because I'm struggling with this because my mind always goes to health, but I do have one thing that I know for sure that I don't want to answer. So go.
I think if they lose in the second round again, it will be because their lack of ability to stand up to aggressive pressure, defensively. What wasn't a Darius Garland symptom, but a team wide problem.
Mm.
And they revert back to Donovan hero ball and just ask him to do it for too long.
Yeah, my
I'm
first
fine with
reaction.
Donovan hero ball, by the way, when it's nut cutting time, but not for an entire series.
Right. I think my first answer is probably my biggest concern, which is, they're up against history in that teams that make a major shakeup at the deadline don't advance to the finals typically, and they certainly don't go out and win a championship. And I think the reason for that is, particularly when you look at their schedule the rest of the year, they're not going to be tested a whole lot. So when they do get tested and you don't have that same level of chemistry and continuity where you've only really had 26 games together or whatever it's going to end up being, that the lack of familiarity is just going to lead to ill-timed turnovers, issues with execution in the clutch, things like that. So that is kind of my biggest concern, because I think if the Cavs are going to lose, whether that's the second round, whether that's in the Eastern Finals, whatever causes them to not make the NBA Finals, which I agree should be the expectation, I think a good portion of it's going to be self-inflicted. I think the other part of the equation is going to be shot luck and variance. I think if they run into a team that is super red hot from three and their margin for error shrinks to the point where those ill-timed turnovers and mistakes from the lack of familiarity or experience with one another actually come back to bite them, I think the Cavs have a high enough floor that it's going to take something like outlier shooting luck from the opposition to put them at risk of losing a series.
Can I tell you an instinct I just had that I kind of want to explore with you?
Oh boy.
I
don't like this already.
When you said, history's against them, teams that make a major shakeup don't historically advance to the finals in the same season. My brain went, is it that major of a shakeup, really? And what I want to explore is, yes, obviously, adding James Harden to your roster and losing Darius Garland off your roster is an important and huge thing. However, this is not a team that needs to fundamentally change who they are.
Yeah.
And, let's say they had traded for, I'm going to make up a trade that didn't happen. Let's say they had traded Darius Garland for Zion Williamson or something like that.
Mm.
And archetypically changed who they are. That feels like a more, we can't make the finals because the shakeup is so big. Like they traded a point guard for a point guard. And I know it's not that simple, and I know James is a very different style of player than Darius, but both of them are the same in the sense that they are genius playmakers that play point guard. Are you picking up what I'm putting down here?
Not only am I picking up what you're putting down, but to take you behind the curtain, I made this exact point on the NBA Daily. I talked to our buddies S and Dave about this, and I said, I'm worried about, making a big trade and a shakeup in the roster. But to some extent, the guys that they brought in are filling very familiar roles. It's not like you're trying to design a new offense around a Domantas Sabonis or something dramatic. Keon Ellis is going to play the Isaac Okoro role. Dennis Schroeder is going to give you a Ty Jerome facsimile, and James Harden is giving you what Darius, in a lot of ways is bringing the same things to the table. So I don't have those same kind of fears and concerns as I would if you're totally changing up your identity. But I do think, it is still something at the forefront of my mind, right? Particularly when it comes to those ill-timed turnovers, because, people, for whatever reason, always felt that Darius was a high turnover player, even though he was one of the best assist to turnover ratio players in the league. James Harden averages like a full assist or a full turnover and a half more per game, basically, right? Like he is going to make more mistakes. He's going to try more adventurous stuff. I think I'm comfortable with him making those mistakes, but it certainly is something that could come up in those spots.
Yep. So I'm glad you played along. I didn't know if I was being semantic.
No, I think it's a very good point to raise, and especially in a very open Eastern Conference where there isn't a lot of teams that have kind of a proven track record of winning a championship that didn't make shakeups themselves. Like Boston made a shakeup in adding Vucevic. There's a whole variety of different factors. Another question from our buddy Ballman gets paid is, assuming everyone is healthy, what is the Cavs' death lineup? And if we don't have one yet, what do you think it might be? I think it's going to be the starting five, but I do think bringing this full circle to the start of the podcast, I do think that there's a chance that you have Dean Wade closing at small forward, and that could kind of be considered that where you're going with this very, very large lineup, a really, really stout lineup defensively, and this is how we're closing some teams out.
I'm going to do a Rodriguez special here and quibble with the concept of the question.
Okay.
I think that 4 years of Warriors making the finals kind of broke our brains and thinking like that you have to have a death lineup. No, you need to have a starting lineup that consistently plays well. You need to have 5-man units you can count on. But like we saw the Thunder win a title by mixing and matching who was on the floor in crucial moments based on who what the situation needed. We've seen the Celtics do that. I just don't know if that's what this Cavs team is, because I don't think they have a 5-man unit that like by a mile outpaces their next best 5-man unit the way the death lineup did. So I'm going to pull a me special and reject the question outright.
I like it. The Z asks from our Discord, does Jarrett Allen's contract increase next season become more palpable?
Palatable.
If the pairing palatable.
Palatable is not the right word.
Okay, palatable. It's it's a long.
Palpable means something you can like touch, I believe.
Well, in some ways you could touch it. With Harden continues to thrive,
or feel.
Does the reality,
I don't know. I gotta go look this up.
Or does the reality of the second apron matter or more? What would you need to see from Jared to make this a justifiable spend? I do think going back to a point you've raised before, which is that increased amount as the salary cap goes up is still the same amount that Hardenstein as kind of the third big on OKC gets. Like, yeah, I think he's already worth that. I think the more interesting question is how far do the Cavs go in the postseason? If they come up short, are adjustments to the rotation and the roster, do you need to make those? Because Jared is absolutely, as he currently is and who he's currently been, he's worth that. It's going to be, resource management of, do we need to address something else? Did Harden consistently feed him in the playoffs and we still had him kind of disappear in some games in the postseason, right? Going back to that chicken and egg question, do we need to make some tweaks for a rotation for one reason or another? I think it's almost, except for how he performs in the postseason, I think it's almost all kind of external stuff that doesn't have to do with necessarily going out and proving. I think Jared is worth it as the player that he is.
Yeah, I think that's all spot on. I'll always say this. It's not as big of a problem to be in the second apron if you love your team. And if you win a title or make the NBA finals, and you lose just by the skin of your teeth, I think it's more likely that he's back. But I think you're right that the team context matters actually much more than Jarrett's performance with regards to whether or not that becomes a problem down the line.
Yeah, and this last question kind of ties into that to some extent as well, which is, what does a realistic good extension look like for Harden this offseason from a team perspective, and where we think it ends up at? I don't think it matters a whole lot. I think where it matters is, do the Cavs need to get under next season for, under the second apron for flexibility, right? Do they need to open up the taxpayer mid-level exception? Do they need to open up and get the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, right? These are the type of questions that might go into the thinking of what you do with Jared Allen, or, what a Harden extension could look like. And I think if no opportunities are out there where you're looking to add talent, if you are looking to make a mid-level exception pitch to LeBron James this offseason, or a different role player that would slot into that salary slot that fills a need that you identify in the playoffs, then, maybe you do look to get a bit of a discount. If you don't need that flexibility, I don't really care. Like, I think it's going to be 2 years, like next season and the following season. So I think that it would functionally be an opt-out, a new contract. I know Brian Windhorst was saying 280. I think that's reasonable. If you get a discount on it, you get a discount on it. But the other thing that I have in mind is Harden has taken discounts in the past. Like, he took a discount with the Clippers for this current contract he's on to help facilitate Bradley Beal joining the roster. So I think, having the guarantees is the important part for him. But I do think that sometimes there's a misconception with Harden, which, he addressed in that last post game where he said, I don't really get credit for taking pay cuts, but it is something that I'm willing to do in spots.
Yeah, I think they probably will want to stay where, at the level they were at with Darius. As kind of, if I had to guess, they wouldn't want to go higher than that in terms of cap allocation. But dude, I honestly, I hate to not answer the question, but like, extensions, especially for older players like this, are like total black boxes to me. Like, I have no sense of what this looks like. And I also
I'm still struggling with the new cap, honestly. They
yeah,
like the
and I don't even know, like, is he even extension eligible technically, or would it be like an opt out and then sign a new deal? Because he has a player option for next year.
An opt out. It would be an opt out and sign a new deal. I think is how it would, structurally have to be.
If I had to guess, and I'm not even going to mention numbers, but I guess, like, if I were to guess like term, I think he's probably trying to get a third year. Because he already has one in hand basically next year. And I'd want basically 2 years after next if I were him, just because I'm getting near the end of, he's older. He's getting near the end of his career. One of the few NBA players that's older than us. Am I right?
Unbelievable.
So like that's kind of where I start. But again, this is a black box to me. Sorry to not answer, but I don't have a good read for this stuff at all.
I think it's dependent on what else they're looking to, accomplish in the offseason. I think the part of why we don't usually get into numbers a lot on this podcast is the Cavs find very creative ways to get things done, to find talent. I know I mentioned this before, but the fact that as a second apron team, they managed to get deeper and better for this season when the second apron is basically supposed to be, hey, you have now committed to this roster. It is this or you blow it up. I think it is a big feather in their cap. So we'll see what they do, but I do think that it is dependent on what they're looking to accomplish with the rest of the offseason. But again, a massive thanks to everyone that submitted the questions. We wouldn't have been able to do this show without you guys. We really do appreciate you. As Carter said earlier, make sure you're checking out Locked On Cavs.
Yeah, we're going live, right? I think his premiere of our podcast just went now. So if you're still jonesing for more Cavs, you should pop over there after you're done with us.
Yeah, but after I'm done talking, though, not a second sooner.
Not a second sooner.
So big thanks to everyone that's hanging out for these last 20 seconds. We appreciate you on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.